So hello, Pat. We are today recording for the Proactive Magazine interview. Pat Flynn is our special guest today. Pat, can you say hi to our readers?
Hey, readers, how are you guys?
Okay, Pat is from smartpassiveincome.com. And Pat, your story is a fairy tale, right? I mean, you,
Sort
lo-
of, kind of.
you lost your dream job and you found something even better. So can you
hmm
just briefly say about it?
Yeah, totally. Back after I graduated college with a degree in architecture, I got pretty much my dream job coming out of it. I was doing some restaurant design and casino design and hotel design. It was like everything I've always wanted to do. And I was working the job for a few years. I even got promoted. I was doing everything I could to climb the corporate ladder. I had my whole 40 years of my life planned ahead of me. And then all of a sudden, in middle of 2008, I had gotten notice that I was going to get laid off. And that was a very, very tough time for me because that's all I knew. That's the only world I knew. And I actually tried to do whatever I can to stay in that job or find other jobs in that arena, but there was nothing available. And I was very fortunate enough to stumble upon a podcast actually called Internet Business Mastery, where I heard of a guy. This was just one of the success stories on that podcast of a guy who was making a living teaching people how to pass the project management exam
Mm-hmm.
online. And I said, hey, I took a couple of exams when I was doing architecture. One of them was called the LEAD exam, and I know quite a bit about it. Maybe I can take some of that information and share that with other people in the architecture industry who want to pass that test. And um, I actually had a website up already that I used to help me and just a couple of coworkers, and I thought maybe I could convert that into a business. And to make a long story short, in October of 2008, I had published an ebook helping people in this industry, and it did really, really well. In the first month after launching that electronic book, I had made $7,908.55 from a $19.99 ebook, which just blew me away. That was much more money than I had ever seen in my whole life. And then it just kept going and going and going up and up from there. And I introduced an audio guide to go along with it. I partnered with other sites to give my audience practice exams, and the income started to grow. So at a point, I was making between $25,000 and $30,000 a month. I had already gotten laid off, and just like you said, I found something much, much better. And the blessing was really getting laid off. I wouldn't have done any of this if I didn't get laid off. So what actually was the worst time of my life actually became a trigger for so many better things. And now I have a blog at smartpassiveincome.com, which is something I created to show people how I do this because a lot of people were asking me how I do it. And plus, I'm just so fortunate to be in the position I'm at today, and I wanted to just share everything. And I think that's what people know me for on my site is I share everything that goes right, everything that goes wrong. I build new businesses, and they don't always go well, but it's always a lesson for those who are watching. And I kind of just see myself as sort of a crash test dummy online. I try things, see if it works out. If it doesn't, it's always something useful for my audience anyway. And a lot of times it has been successful. So I actually have an iPhone application company that's done really well. I have a business in the security guard training industry here in the US. I have a food truck site that I just put up actually. I also have some software applications and things like that. I get to spend most of my time at home with my kids and then just work a few hours a day, which is really cool.
So, yeah, I mean, this is well, there will be a couple of questions regarding just to this, but how do you manage to? I mean, so you start these businesses and then you let them be managed by someone else or by some processes. How do you manage? I mean, so many things at once.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people see all the things I have going on now and they ask that same exact question. How are you able to work on all these different businesses at the same time? Well, that's where the passive income part comes into play. And it was very much inspired by Tim Ferriss when I read The 4 Hour Work Week
Right.
and his ability to put systems and automation into these businesses. So you don't have to be present in order for a transaction to happen. So for example, greenexamacademy.com, which is my lead exam study guide website, people can come to that site and purchase products or practice exams or whatever the case may be. And through the systems that I've put in place, through applications and software, people can purchase those things and it gets automatically delivered to them without me having to do anything. The computer does that for me, and all that I have to do is be on the receiving end of that payment. And of course I still have to upkeep those things every once in a while. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like I can walk away 100%, but I can go to sleep at night knowing that that business is still up and running and providing value and delivering products for people. And that's how I'm able to sort of put that on almost 100% autopilot. Right now I'm pretty much dedicating about 2 or 3 hours a month just to that particular business, which at this point is making between $4,000 and $8,000 a month because the industry's kind of come back a little from when it was hot when I was in it. But again, $4,000 to $8,000 a month for just 3 hours of work is definitely not bad, and that is what is giving me some extra time to create new businesses. My other site, securityguardtraininghq.com, that's a site that helps people become security guards. That makes most of its revenue through advertising. And so people come to the site, they see ads. If it's something useful to them, they click on those ads, and I get a payment as a result of that as well without me having to actually be there for that to happen. So there's multiple and different cases just like that throughout my whole portfolio.
But is there a moment in one of these businesses when, for example, like suddenly they need more maintenance than you planned, and then you have to just change your plans just to cater for this moment or something?
Sure. I mean, obviously, there are moments in certain industries where and you can plan for those sorts of things. For example, in the lead exam industry, every 2 or 3 years, the exam gets updated. So, of course, I can't sell old study material. That has to be updated. Right. And I spend maybe a month or two creating the new material for that or working with other people to help create that new material. And then I spend more time on that, and then I kind of let it go again. Well, then I can focus on other things. There are moments in each of the businesses where things that are unplanned happen, and in those moments you just kind of have to adapt to those situations. And it's I'm lucky enough to have enough time to be able to sort of change my direction every once in a while if I need to. Probably the thing that isn't the most automated as far as in terms of all the businesses that I have is my main blog at smartpassiveincome.com, because that requires constant updating. It requires interacting and engaging with my community. And although that is not passive, it is giving me the ability to create passive income opportunities through affiliate marketing, through creating my own products, perhaps advertising and sponsorships like on my podcast as well. And again, it's just I don't have to be there in order for a transaction to happen. But to keep that community going and growing, I have to be there, writing blog posts once a week at least. I feel that's a good rhythm that I've found. But yeah, I mean, my dedication and time is kind of spent mostly there.
Yeah, but for example, I'm really impressed how you're producing your podcast, because you have a very, very dedicated process there that you do the daily questions, and it sounds like you're like all day answering questions, but which is actually not what you're doing. So can you explain a little bit of how this process goes? Because it's really, really great. I'm really impressed.
Sure. So I have a podcast at askpat.com where people send in voicemail questions to me, and then I answer those questions 5 days a week on that show. And it's doing really well. In the first month and a half, it has seen just about 500,000 downloads. So I'm very proud of that work.
Congrats.
But I am not recording each of those answers every day and posting them. I am batch processing those answers. So here's the workflow. Here's how it works. I use a tool called speakpipe.com to collect those voicemail questions from my audience. So my audience can either come to my website at askpat.com or go to my SpeakPipe page at speakpipe.com/PatFlynn, and they can leave with their internal microphones or any headsets they might have a question for me. Now my assistant will go in and she'll listen to all the questions, and I'm getting about 12 to 15 every day now. And it would be crazy if I had to listen to all those myself and filter through the ones that are good, that are bad, so on and so forth. So I have my assistant do that for me, and she listens to all of them, puts them into a spreadsheet with the name of that person, the number of that SpeakPipe file, and also a really quick summary of what that question is. And then once or twice a month, I go in there and I pick out the questions that I want to answer for the next month. And then I pick out about 25 because I only do 5 days a week. And then I put them and then I just look at them while I record the answer. And what I do is I record the answer on GarageBand. I don't put in the question. I listen to the question, but I don't put it in GarageBand. Right. All I do is record my answer and connect, name it the same file name as that question, so that when I upload it to Dropbox, my assistant knows to put those two together, the question that was submitted and then my answer, and then boom, we're done. She also takes care of all the metadata and stuff that has to be in there as well for podcast episodes. And so I'm literally spending 8 hours typically a month to record an entire month's worth of episodes. Mm-hmm. And I'm at a point now where I've gotten sponsorships to come on, and I'm making, when there are sponsors on board, I'm making between $200 and $400 per episode. So if you could do the math there, it's pretty good for 8 hours of work to get 25 episodes at $400 max each.
No, it's pretty good, pretty good. So exactly about assistants. So you wouldn't be able to do it all by yourself, which is obvious. Tell me, at which point you decided to hire an assistant, or do you have several assistants for different purposes or different businesses? How do you structure that, and how do you get this support system in place to get your stuff done?
Well, with this particular project, AskPat, I had somebody who was already doing other stuff for me, admin work and that type
Okay.
of thing, and she is really good technically, so she was able to come on board and sort of add this to what she was already doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it on my own, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't start it as soon as I did, or as soon as I would have liked to, because I didn't know about this whole batch processing
Right.
thing. It was when I was introduced to and spoke with John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire, who has a daily show,
Mm-hmm.
7 days a week of top ranking podcasts on iTunes, Entrepreneur on Fire, and his shows daily are between 30 minutes and an hour long. I mean, that to do that daily, I was like, how did you do this? And then he taught me that he uses assistants to help with the workflow and also batch processes them. So he records, and he's kind of nuts. He records about 7 or 8 interviews,
Mm-hmm.
about 30 minutes to an hour long every Monday,
Okay.
all of those every Monday, and then he ships them off to his assistant, and then they're done for the rest of the week. And so that's where I kind of learn that process. I have assistants helping me with other things as well. I've recently brought on sort of a project manager, I guess you could say, or
Mm-hmm.
or a producer who is helping me big time. This is somebody who isn't cheap, but it's somebody who lifts a lot of the work off my shoulders that so that I can spend time doing the big idea thinking that I need to do. This person helps me. If I come up with an idea, this person will help put all the people together to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
and create the schedule and make sure we follow sprints correctly. And yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
Linkin Park's a good band, by the way.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean the thing is because I had this problem because I'm running a software company, and for me I had to develop several ideas and everything. And actually listening to you on Michael Hyatt's podcast, I started also getting back to the Tim Ferriss ideas, which I already
Mhm.
read way before, but haven't implemented so much. So I also hired an assistant. I also started hiring these processes in place, and they
Cool.
helped me really also achieve better results
Hmm.
thanks to that. So and because we're a proactive magazine, and proactive magazine is about getting things done and proactivity. Well, David Allen is also saying that the lazy people are the most productive because the lazy people set up processes for them so that things work for them when they don't have to work, right?
Right, right. This is true. I think another thing, though, however, that holds a lot of people back, especially with working with assistants. I mean, there's a few things. One, it costs money to do that up
Right.
front before you can see the results of spending that money later. But another thing, and this goes along with something my buddy Chris Ducker from chrisducker.com says, who's actually coming out with a book tomorrow called Virtual Freedom. It's this thing called superhero syndrome. We
Mm-hmm.
all have it as entrepreneurs, and we
Yeah.
feel like we could do everything, or we should do everything ourselves. And that was something I struggled with in the beginning when I had my lead exam website and I was just setting that up. I did everything myself. Even the coding of the website I learned on YouTube, and I just wasted so much time trying to figure that out on my own. And I remember coding the site and shifting things around and moving and making the page look at the way I wanted to. And then when I finally got smart and hired someone to come and sort of change it up and make it look more professional, the developer I hired was like, "Who did you have to put the site together? It's the worst code I've ever seen in my life." And I was like, "That was me." And so he was like, "Oh, okay, I can see why you hired me now." So, and then of course he put together a beautiful site. If you go to greenexamacademy.com, you could kind of see it there. It's much better than I could ever do myself, and he did it much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the first few examples of me finally seeing what it was like to hire other people for help and spend a little bit of money to earn more money later.
Right, right. I mean, and especially once I mean, several of your things have taken off, you have this margin of money that you can start
Right.
investing. What people
Hmm.
do is that they keep the money and start and keep working more and more and more hours. But this is
Yeah,
not your main idea, because your main idea is still to have some time for you and your family, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, also your story is very personal in this sense that my brother is an architect, and he also had a very good job, and then he was laid off for similar reasons like yourself, and then now
Mhm.
he's starting his own business, and he's also very happy starting
Cool.
his own business. So I have a very similar story in my. I mean, he's not doing this the passive income; he's doing something else, but
Sure.
he's also doing something that he really loves, and you know what happened was that something that he thought was the biggest disaster in his life,
Right.
prompted him to do something totally cool. And
Yeah, I mean it's weird how sometimes you need those really almost dramatic moments in life to discover that there are these other opportunities available, or that you can change and be a different person. I mean, for some people, it's like a death of somebody they love, and that changes their perspective on life, and they do things that they wouldn't normally do because they know they might not have much time left, and they want to go out there and make a difference and become, leave a legacy and that sort of thing. I mean, it's hard sometimes when we need those big punches in our face to understand, okay, like to sort of reset and see what else is out there. Because for me, if I didn't get laid off, I'd still be in architecture right now. I guarantee you.
right.
Because it was getting laid off that actually, and really not having anything else to fall back on, that made me do things that I wouldn't normally do. Made me take bigger risks, and knowing that really what did I have to lose? So I'm not saying you should quit your job or you should, go through a dramatic experience. I hope people don't have to do that, but
Right.
sometimes something like that, or that sort of mindset is what it takes. When there's really nothing else that you can't that would make you happy. I think that's what it's about. And I think for people, you have to think about, okay, where are you at now? Are you really happy? What is a really perfect day like for you?
Right.
Okay, that's what it is. What are you going to do to make it happen? Is what you're doing now going to help you get there?
Yeah, totally, totally. It's a perfect punchline to finish the interview, but I would like to ask one last thing. So
Of course.
because I mean you're the perfect example, and I think the first example of all the interviews we did of a person who's so prolific about the processes, about setting up processes for something to replicate and replicate. So
Mhm.
so if you could explain quickly, when you set up a new business, how fast you start, thinking about processes, or do you think about them up front, or do you just do some stuff and keep, adding notes and notes, and then
Sure.
how does it work? Yeah.
As far as starting a business, I think what I've learned through starting multiple and having multiple failures is that when you spend the time up front to validate those ideas first, you're going to save a lot more time down the road. So doing research up front instead of just diving head first in the deep end and just trying to swim, doing the research, validating those ideas, and sort of taking a lean approach with it. That's something that I've been
Right.
discovering has been really, really handy lately, is taking the lean approach, not putting all the bells and whistles into everything and actually spending a lot of time and money creating something that might not even be used or wanted by your particular target audience. It's going to your target audience, speaking to them on the phone or on Skype, and actually diving into the wants and needs that you can then provide to them. Start with a minimum viable product and then build it out with them from there. So doing the research, and if you talk to a few people and they tell you, hey, we would never buy this isn't useful to us, then you know that you can shift and move and pivot and do something else instead of building something out that you think might work and then it doesn't, and you wasted all that time, energy, and resources to that. So even before we get into like, okay, this is how you build a business. I mean, I think businesses will develop based on your conversations that you have with the target audience whose problems you're trying to provide a solution for.
Yeah, and then when you know that the thing that you want to sell would sell, and then you have your first customers. So what do you do next? I mean, do you really dive yourself in, or you already set up processes for people, or you get your assistant on board? What do you do next?
Yeah, well, at this point, I have my project manager, my producer, come in, and he organizes everything, and he kind of just
Okay.
tells everybody what to do, which is great. I love that. That's how we created the most recent site at foodtrucker.com. It was a group effort, instead of just me trying to do everything myself. It was sort of everybody collectively putting their own strengths into it in the way that they know how to do it. Knowing that even though there may be things that I like to do,
Yeah.
like designing, like I love to design, I love to do Photoshop and things like that. I knew that we had somebody else that could better do that and do it much faster, even though I want to do it. And I think this is the hardest part for any entrepreneur,
Okay.
is giving up the things you want to do that you shouldn't be doing as the business's owner.
Right.
As far as like, it's hard for me to give you like a okay, this is what you do first
Right.
because it depends on what that answer is or
Hmm.
what the problems
For the
and
businesses, yeah.
potential solutions are. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So I really think in terms of productivity, it's getting more heads in there talking about it as well. That's another thing with productivity and also starting new businesses. A lot of people, they get a business idea and they keep it to themselves. They don't want to share it with anybody.
Right.
They're afraid other people are going to steal it or whatever the case may be. But I swear, when you start talking about it with other people, you get the outside reaction of what it is that you want to create, and you can see people sort of just maybe not understanding what you're saying or maybe really latching on to that idea, which gives you again validation for what you want to do. So I would recommend talking about it, hopefully with people that you trust that wouldn't
Hmm.
take that idea from you. But even if people were going to take that idea from you, they're not going to have the time and resources. They're not going to be the ones like you who have the energy and are focused just on that one thing. And that's the last point I want to make, is that I know I have a ton of businesses going on, but whenever I'm in work mode, I'm focusing on one project and one task within that project. Until
Hmm.
that task within that one project is done, I don't think or learn about anything else unless it's related to
Right, right, totally. So I think this is the best line to finish the interview. So thanks, Pat, for doing
You're
this.
welcome.
You are a great inspiration, and I'm sure you'll be a great inspiration to people who have not still heard about you, and who will read about you and see you in Practice Magazine. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.